Gen students, welcome to online English class, and today we are going to study chapter number 2 from Vistas, the enemy, part 7, and I think it is going to be the last part, the concluding part. And for this students, that first of all I am going to share the story with you. But before, let me remind you one more thing, that today we will conclude the chapter, and along with that, if time permits, we will also discuss some important questions. So let us begin, children. And for this, first of all, I am going to share the story with you on your screen. Now the story is shared with you. Now you can see that we are on page number 44, and we are going to begin from here. The young man nodded in perfect comprehension. Okay, he said simply, and Sadao did not see him again until evening. As soon as it was dark, he had dragged the stout boat down to the shore, and in it he put food and bottled water. Now, students, in previous class we have studied that when Dr. Sadao had waited for 3 consecutive nights and for the assassins, for the killers, and when General was unable to send those killers, and when they did not come, so finally Dr. Sadao changed his plan and decided to help him to escape from his house, and for that he made a plan to arrange his own private boat for him to escape from his house. And then let us see, students, what he did. That the young man nodded, and he also told him about that, and the enemy soldier became ready for that. Sadao did not see him again until evening, and after that, when that Tom, the enemy soldier, became ready for his plan to escape, then Sadao did not meet him again until evening. And as soon as it was dark, he had dragged the stout boat down to the shore, seashore, and in it he put food and bottled water that he had bought secretly during the day. And first of all, he managed his own boat, and he brought the boat on the seashore, and when it was dark, he brought it down to the shore, and he put food for him, and bottled water that he could use, and all these things that he had bought separately during the day, and as well as 2 quilts he had bought at a pawn shop. And not only that, rather that he puts 2 quilts as well for him to use in case that he has to stay there in that nearby island. The boat he tied to a post. The boat which he brought, it was his own boat, his private boat, and he had tied that boat to a post with a pillar in the water, and for the tide was high, because the tide was high, so that's why he had tied it with a post, with a pillar. and there was no moon, and he worked without a flashlight, without a torch. And at that time there was no moon, means it was dark, and the use of flashlight could be dangerous. So that's why he did not use the flashlight, he did not use the torch. Even that he was working at the night, he was arranging everything, boat and other things for him, even without a torch. And when he came to the house, he entered as though he were just back from his work. And so Hannah knew nothing. And when he came back to his house, that he entered in such a way that Hannah could not understand anything, that what he was doing, as he had come back from his work, because he wanted to keep his plan secret from Hannah. He does not want to tell his plan to Hannah. And Yumi was here today. She said, as she served his supper. And then when he came, that Hannah told him that Yumi, that the one of the servants that was taking care of their children, and she was here, she came there at their house that day. And though she was so modern, still she did not eat with him. And it was also quality, we can say, of Hannah, that though she was quite modern lady, but even though she did not like to eat with him. And further she told that Yumi cried over the baby, and Yumi was missing the baby, that's why she came, and she misses him, and that's why she came there to take care of him. The servants will come back as soon as the foreigner is gone, Sadao said. And Sadao also consoled him by saying that rest of the servants will also return to their work when once foreigner, means the enemy soldier, will leave their house. And he went into the guest room that night before he went to bed himself, and checked carefully the American's temperature. And then he went into the guest room. First of all, he went there to meet that American soldier, and he checked carefully the American's temperature. He checked his temperature and the condition of his wound, and his pulse, his heartbeat. And the pulse was irregular, but that was perhaps because of excitement. And he thoroughly checked about his health. Everything was all right, and he was completely healthy. And his pulse was irregular only because of his excitement, as that he had to be escaped. He was thinking that he was going to be released, going to be free from there, from the danger, and that's why he was quite excited. And because of that, it may be that the pulse was irregular, but doctor knew it very well, so there was no problem with his health. He was healthy enough to row the boat himself. The young man's pale lips were pressed together and his eyes burned. Only the scars on his neck were red, and only the scars, that injury wound mark was there, so it was red enough, but otherwise there was nothing to worry. He was completely healthy to escape from there. I realize you are saving my life again, he told Sadao, and once again he expressed his gratitude towards Dr. Sadao, and said that I realize that you are saving my life again, because once he had saved his life when he brought him from the sea and operated upon and saved his life, and still he was in danger. because he was still in Japan and he was enemy soldier. He could be caught at any time by Japanese army or Japanese police. So he was always in danger until he escaped from there. So when that Dr. Sadao made a plan for him to escape from his house, that he filled once again with the gratitude, and he expressed it. And not at all, Sadao said, it is only inconvenient to have you here any longer. And Dr. Sadao said that it is not so, because that he was not interested. He said because staying, and he told that it is only inconvenient to have you here any longer, means until you are here, that we all are in danger. He realized it, and that's why he told that you are not safe. Until you are here, you are not safe. And he was also realizing this fact, that his own family was also not safe. That's why that he wanted him to escape from his house as earlier as possible. And he had hesitated a good deal about giving the man a flashlight. Flashlight means his torch. And because he had to go in dark, so that's why he wanted to give him his torch. And while he was giving him his flashlight, his torch, that he was hesitating a little, but he had decided to give it to him after all. But finally that he had decided to give him his own torch. And it was a small one, his own, which he used at night when he was called. And because that he was using that oftenly, whenever he was called at night, that he was using, means the torch was his own, his private, but even though he had given that to him. And if your food runs out before you catch a boat, signal me 2 flashes. At the same instant, the sun drops over the horizon. Not only that, rather he was also taking care of him, that until he stays there at the in the island, he should not have lack of food. So that's why he told him that if your food runs out, and before you catch it, you don't get any Korean boat, and your food runs out, so signal me 2 flashes, and give me 2 flashes from your torch. At the same instant, at the sun drops over the horizon, at the dusk time. Because if at the dark, in the dark, if he would have given, it could be dangerous, he could be caught. So that's why he told that at the time of dusk, you can give me give him you he could give him 2 flashes from his torch. And do not signal in darkness. And he warned him not to signal, not to give him signal of flashlights in darkness, because it will be seen. That could be dangerous, he could be caught, it could be seen. So if you are all right but still there, signal me once. And if everything is all right, his food does not run out, and still he was there, then he instructed him to give him a one signal. And you will find fresh fish easy to catch, but you must eat them raw. A fire would be seen. And further he instructed him to catch the fresh fish to eat in case he was hungry and he does not have the food, and you must eat them raw. And he told them that don't try to cook that in fire, because if he will light the fire, so it could be identified, he could be identified. So that's why he forbade him not to not to light the fire there at deserted island. Okay, the young man breathed, and then he uh, followed. He understood everything, and he said, okay. And he was dressed now in Japanese clothes which Sadao had given him. And now that he had taken complete precaution, Dr. Sadao, in order to help him to escape, he had taken complete precaution. Not only provided him food, water, and quilts, and with the instruction and his own boat and his own flashlight, rather he also gave him the dress, Japanese dress, Japanese clothes, which Sadao had given him. And at the last moment, Sadao wrapped a black cloth about his blonde head, because it was, his hair was yellow. He could also be identified because of his yellow um, hair. So that's why finally he wrapped a black cloth on his head. And now Sadao said, the young American, without a word, shook Sadao's hand warmly and then walked quite well across the floor and down the step into the darkness of the garden. And then very warmly he shook his, that Tom, the enemy soldier, shook his hand with him, and took his leave from there, and he walked quite well across the floor and down to the step into the darkness. And because it was dark, in the darkness through the garden, he escaped from there. He went away from his house, and once, twice, Sadao saw his light flash to find his way, and with the help of his light flash, that he was trying to get his way, because it was dark in the garden at that time. But that would not be suspected, would not be suspected. He could not be identified because of that. And he waited until from the shore there was one more flash, and then he closed the partition. That night he slept, and then he was waiting for him until he reached to the boat. And when he had given him final flash from his torch, and then he understood that he had got the boat, and now he will be able to row the boat and reach the island. And then he closed the door, partition, he closed the door. That night he slept, and that night, when that enemy soldier was escaped from his house, that he was able to sleep comfortably. Now let us see, students, in next paragraph. So you say the man escaped, the general asked faintly, and next time when he met General Tokima, then he told him about the escape of the enemy soldier. And he had been operated upon a week before, an emergency operation to which Sadao had been called in the night. And once in the night, the Dr. Sadao had been called because that his condition was severe, and he had to go on through the emergency operation. And for 12 hours Sadao had not been sure that general would leave, and for 12 hours, because that it was a severe operation, so after the operation for 12 hours even Dr. Sadao was not sure that he will be alive. The gallbladder was much involved, and then the old man had begun to breathe deeply again and to demand food. And after 12 hours, when he felt a little bit comfortable, and he demanded for food, and then Dr. Sadao got a sigh of relief. And Sadao had not been able to ask about the assassins, and now this Sadao was confirmed that General Takima was out of danger, and then he realized that he had not been able to ask to the assassin, means till then that he had not, because his condition was very critical, and that's why that Dr. Sadao did not, you know, talked him about the assassins, that why he had not sent those assassins to kill the enemy soldier at his house. So far as he knew, they had never come, and whatever Dr. Sadao knew, that his private killers, private assassins had never uh, reached to his house. The servants had returned, and Yumi had cleaned the guest room thoroughly and had burnt sulfur in it to get the white man's smell out of it. And by that time, rest of the servants, Yumi had already been returned to his service, and the rest of the two servants, they also returned, and Yumi had burnt a sulfur in the room where that enemy soldier American was staying, in order to get his smell out of the room. And nobody said anything, and the servants also did not say anything after that, because that they had the problem with the servant and with the enemy, with the American. And once American gone from there, they did not discuss over the matter, and only the gardener was cross, because that he had got behind with his uh, chrysanthemums. Chrysanthemums, that is a kind of flower plant. And gardener, because that he came late, and mm, with his flower plant, and only he was crossed for coming late. And but after a week, Sadao felt the general was well enough to be spoken to about the prisoner. And but after a week, that general Dr. Sadao thought that that was the correct time to ask to the general that why he did not send the uh, killers to kill the American at his house. Now, student, his role, why Dr. Takima's role is important. Now, here we can see that this part is very important. Remember, because that his why he was unable, though the general was quite ruthless, very strict, like any of the Japanese official. And but in that case, why he became soft, why he became careless, this is an important question, can be raised. And but let us see that what is the reply of the general. So general was well enough to be spoken to about the prisoner. Dr. Sadao thought to discuss over the matter with the general now. And yes, excellency, he escaped, Sadao now said. Now Dr. Sadao informed the general that the enemy soldier to whom he had given shelter, he had escaped from his house, and he coughed, signifying that he had not said all he might have said, but was unwilling to disturb the general further, and even that he wanted to say something more, but he did not say. He hides those fact that how he helped him to escape from it, means he did not uh, share that matter with him, but was unwilling to disturb the general further, and because that he did not want to disturb him much. But the old man opened his eyes suddenly, and that old man means General Takima opened his eyes, and that prisoner, he said with some energy, means he recalled his promise about the prisoner, about the American soldier, which he did. And he said that, did I not promise you I would kill him for you. And he recalled his promise that he had promised to Dr. Sadao that he will send two of his private assassins to kill him at his house. Uh, you did, Excellency. Sadao said, yes, definitely. You promised me. Well, the old man said in a tone of amazement that so I did, but you see that, and he told that yes, definitely means I forgot to fulfill my promise. And now, in order to explain him, he told that I was suffering from a good jail, means he was not well at that time. And the truth is that I thought of nothing but myself. At that time, he was thinking about himself only. He was thinking only about his illness. And in short, I forgot my promise to you. And then finally, he told that he forgot actually his promise. Here that students, we can see his self-centeredness, his selfishness, his self-absorption was involved in it. He was thinking about his own interest, about his own health. He did not want to put doctor in any kind of danger in any way, because he knew it that it is Dr. Sadao who can save his life in case of any other attack or any other operation which he required. So I wondered, Mohammed Sadao said to him that he wondered why that he forgot his promise, and it was certainly very careless of me. And then he admitted, General Tokima admitted that certainly it was his carelessness. And now students, remember that this means what statement he is going to give, that is important. And he had explained it. He had given a proper reason, that actually what was the reason behind that he was unable to send those assassins to kill the American. And further he said that, but you understand, it was not lack of patriotism or dereliction of duty. Dereliction of duty means lack of his duty, lack of sincerity in his duty. And he told that it is not because of lack of patriotism that there was any doubt, any question on his national loyalty, or that he was careless towards his duty. Because he was a general at that time, it was his duty to take prompt action to arrest the enemy soldier immediately. But he told that he looked anxiously at his doctor, and worriedly he was looking towards the doctor, and said that if, now see student, and this statement of him is important. He said that if the matter should come out, you would understand, that means you could also be in danger. If matter should come out, if he would have sent him anyhow, that American soldier would have been arrested, then there was no doubt that doctor would also be in danger for helping, for saving the life at the time of war to an enemy soldier, and this would have been an anti-national activity. So he could be booked, he could be arrested and executed for an anti-national activity at the war time. So he was also thinking about the doctor, but was really he was thinking only about the welfare of the doctor? Wouldn't you? He said to him. Certainly, Your Excellency, Sadao said, and he suddenly comprehended, means understood, that the general was in the palm of his hand, and that as a consequence, eventually he himself was perfectly safe. And he thought that he was not thinking much about the doctor, rather he was thinking about his own illness. If there will be a doctor will be arrested, doctor will be executed, punished, then his own life could be in danger. So that's why indirectly he was thinking about himself for his own interest. And then But from his statement, it was very clear to Dr. Sadao that he was out of danger. There is no danger to him because that general was in his hand. General's life was in his hand. I can swear you your loyalty, Excellency. But even though Dr. Sadao also knew that he was very loyal, there can't be any question about his national loyalty. And he said to the old general, and to your zeal against the enemy, and you are a good man. And after that he also told that means your zeal against the enemy means he was very strict, very rude, very ruthless, and he could not spare any of the enemy. But since he was uh, along with him, that even that doctor could also be danger, and this way he would have been deprived from the services of the doctor, and that's why he could not he forgot to send his assassins to kill him. And you are a good man, the general murmured and closed his eyes, and you will be rewarded. And finally he told that you are a good man. He told to the doctor, he called doctor a good man, and you will be rewarded. And then he also promised him to give him reward. But Sadao, searching the spot of black in the twilight sea, that night had already got his reward. There was no prick of light in the dusk, and no one was on the island, and his prisoner was gone safe, doubtless. And doctor thought that he had already got his reward because that he was able to uh, help help the enemy to escape from his house successfully, and for he had warned him to wait only for a Korean fishing boat. And that's why that it was the biggest uh, reward for a doctor, he thought, because finally that a person to whom a dying person, to whom that he had saved his life, and after that he could not throw him back into the jaws of death once again by handing him over to the police or to the army. And that's why when he was confirmed that he did not receive any flashlight from the deserted island, then he was confirmed that he was able to escape successfully and would have got the Korean fishing boat. And he stood for a moment on the veranda, gazing out the sea from whence the young man had come that other night. And from his veranda, he was gazing towards the sea from where he had received the enemy soldier. And into his mind, although without reason, there came other white faces he had known, the professor at whose house he had met Hannah. And not only that, during his stay in America, he also recalled the professor at whose house that he stayed during his study in America. He was a dull man, and his wife had been so silly and talkative, and he did not like his wife, professor's wife, because she was silly and she was so talkative. And in spite of her wish to be kind, that he remembered his old teacher of anatomy, and he was also thinking about another American that who was anatomy professor, and who had been insistent on mercy with the knife. And then that he remembered the face of his fat and slatternly landlady, and he was also thinking about the landlady, American landlady, that at whose house that he was staying. And he had a great difficulty in finding a place to live in America because he was a Japanese. Now remember, student, this is also that another important point, that he had a great difficulty in finding a place to live in America because that he was a Japanese, and only because the Americans were suffering from racial prejudice. They considered themselves superior than anybody else, and that's why they did not give any importance to any other nationals. So that's why he was considering that how Americans were biased, they were suffering from racial uh, um, from racial discrimination and racial prejudice. And while he was staying there in America, he had a great difficulty to find out a house on rent because he was a Japanese, and that's why no American were ready to give him his house on rent. So he was considering about all that, and the Americans were full of prejudice. And now that he said that Americans were full of, they were biased, they were full of prejudice, and it had been bitter to live in it, knowing himself their superior, and how he had despised the ignorant and dirty old woman that who had at last consented to house him in her miserable home. And that he was also, that thinking about the lady, that finally that how she consented, she agreed to give him her miserable house to live. And he had once tried to be grateful to her because that she had in his last year nursed him through influenza. And once he also remembers, he recalls that while he was suffering with influenza, that she was taking care of him, but it was difficult, for she was no less repulsive to him in her kindness. But even though he did not have much liking for her, and now that he remembered the youthful, haggard face of his prisoner, and then finally he also remembers the youthful, haggard face of his prisoner, white and repulsive, that full of hatred. His face, since he was an enemy, he did not like that. This also, that his final statement also proves that he never liked American. Though he had saved his life, he had helped him for a safe escape, but even though he never liked the enemy soldier to whom he had given shelter at his house. And white and repulsive and strange, he thought that, I wonder now, student, this last statement, he thought that strange, I wonder why I could not kill him, means he was surprised on his own decision, that though that he disliked Americans so much, but even though that why he was not able to kill him, why he had saved his life, it was beyond his understanding. He was unable to understand his own act. Now, student, these are those statements which are important. I kept on telling you, and you keep in your mind those important statements, important characters, theme, message, everything that we had already discussed, and that generally the questions will be asked from these areas. So you have to take care of that. Now let us see that short answer type questions. I think that you would have done in 30 to 40 words each. Now it's the time for discussing these questions. These are the important questions. Reading with insight, students, you can see it, and these questions are important because that you have to write the answers of these questions in 120 to 150 words, as long answer type questions can be asked from this exercise. And some questions are important which have already been asked in board examinations, or they can be asked, so you must have to write the answers of those in your own words, and you can understand. Now you have understood this story, so easily you can understand uh, those answers. Now see student, that first of all, that which question is important. I am telling about you that there are 7 questions, but rest of the questions you can go through, you can read that, but some of the important questions which I am going to tell you, that you must have to write the answers of these important questions, marking as an important for board examination in your notebook. Now see that question number uh, 1, question number 2, and question number 4. Question number 1, this question is very important. There are moments in life when we have to make hard choices between our roles as private individuals and as citizens with the sense of national loyalty. Discuss with reference to the story you have just read. You know that two things, that private individuals and as the citizens with the sense of national loyalty, and about whom that you have to write about the act of Dr. Sadao, as he performed both of his duty. He was in conflict, he was in dilemma what to do when he found the enemy soldier, American soldier, in dying condition. So, but even though that finally we have seen that he had performed both of his duty as a private doctor. First of all, he had saved his life, and he performed his duty as an individual, private individual, means first of all he was a doctor, so he had performed his duty as a doctor by saving the life of a dying man without considering whether he was an enemy uh, or a friend. And then he also performed his duty as a patriot, as a citizen of the country with a sense of national loyalty. He was very much loyal towards his country as well, by informing to general about his stay at his house, that he had also that performed his duty as a national loyalist, as a patriot. So now it was the duty of the general to take prompt action to arrest him. So by giving these details, you can complete the word limit. Remember students, 120 your long answer type questions will be asked to answer in 120 to 150 words, and utilize the maximum word limit in that sense. And now see children, that question number 2, this is also very important question. Dr. Sadao was compelled by his duty as a doctor to help the enemy soldier. What made Hannah, his wife, sympathetic to him in the face of open defiance from the domestic staff? Domestic staff were on open defiance, means they refused to do anything for enemy soldier, and even though finally they had left the house, they did not support to doctor and Hannah. But even though Dr. Sadao was compelled about his duty, because he was a doctor, so he cannot see any person dying in front of his eyes without doing some effort to save him, because he was a doctor and it was his professional call. But what made Hannah, his wife, sympathetic to him? So why? Because that Hannah helped him, because that she was a that kind lady, and she considered him about and it was first of all that she thought that his duty, it was her duty, she was an obedient wife, and at the time when all the servants that left him, there was nobody to support her husband. She found it was her duty to help her husband, and also she was a kind lady, and the mm, sympathetic nature of her towards the enemy's soldier helped her to perform her duty to help Dr. Sadao. So all these points you can mention that, because we are lacking the time, as um, otherwise we can have discussed it in detail. But you know the answer that I have told you many times, but try to give your answer in your own words. This question is also important. First one is very important, fourth question is also important, and then second one. Rest of the answer you have to write in your own words, but you know that focus on question number 1, question number 2, and question number 4. Question number 4: what explains the attitude of the general in the matter of enemy soldier? Was it human consideration? Human consideration? No. Lack of national loyalty? He was also nationally very much loyal person. And dereliction of duty, or simply self-absorption? I think that this was, you can consider about self-absorption, means self-centeredness, selfishness. He was thinking about his own interest. He did not want to do anything which can keep Dr. Sadao in danger. So he wanted to save the doctor. And why? Because he did not want to lose his services, did not want to lose the services of such a competent doctor. That's why he did not want that doctor should be in any kind of danger. So today only that we have discussed about the answer of this question, so easily you can do that. And now question number 5 also you can do, and doctor's final solution question number 6. Rest of the two, this question number 7 and 8 you can do for yourself, but these questions up to question number 1 to 6 you have to write in your notebook. So I think that's all, students. And for today, the chapter the enemy is very important. And apart from this, that you can also attempt some important question you can do, like the character sketch of Dr. Sadao and justification of the title the enemy. These two points are also important for your answer. If you can write the answer of these two questions as an additional one, then you must do that. That's all for today, students. Thank you and have a good day.